conference for the Raleigh SEO meetup. And I need your feedback to be able to figure out what tracks you're interested in, what speakers you would like to see at that event. So please fill out that survey, give me that feedback so we can put on a great event for you guys. Without further ado, Jenny Halasz? Halasz. Okay, I was close. I knew I was going to butcher it. Jenny Halasz. Apparently she's in love with SEO and she's going to tell us all about it.
Hey guys, thanks for coming out on a Tuesday. My name is Jenny Halasz, and I just want to say one more time, thank you so much to ROI Revolution for the food. We really appreciate it. And they are a fantastic company to work for. I don't work there personally, but I consult with them, and they're terrific. So that's my plug. So I thought it might be useful. It seems like this time of year, we always end up with the powers that be saying, okay, SEO, what have you done for me lately? And everybody finds themselves having to justify their paycheck and justify their budgets. And I thought it might be helpful to give you guys some statistics and some information that you can carry back to your bosses to say, hey, SEO is really important. It's not going anywhere, and here's why. So you may have heard SEO is dead. Few people have said this. You know, it seems like every 6 months or so, somebody comes out with some clickbait article that says, SEO is dead. We really mean it this time. Yeah, not so much. And I'm going to tell you why. To begin with, by the end of 2016, internet traffic, all internet traffic, including the World Wide Web, which is different, by the way, the World Wide Web and apps and everything going across the internet, it's going to be 1 zettabyte per year. Put that in perspective for you. That's 1 billion terabytes. That's a lot of cat pictures. There are 47 billion indexed and searchable pages on the web. That sounds like a lot, doesn't it? What do you think would happen if you printed all that out? Well, somebody who has a lot of time on their hands. Sorry? You'd have Hillary's emails. Nice, nice, well timed. There are over 1 billion websites, give or take, and there are approximately 30 new websites being added per second. That turns out to be about 305.5 billion pages. Somebody felt like we should print out the internet and see how many pages it was, and that's what they came up with. Seems like a lot, right? That is a lot. That's a lot of content. But let's go back to that 47 billion. That's how much Google actually knows about. 305.5 billion pages in the world, on the internet, on the World Wide Web. Only 47 billion of them are indexed by Google. That means, to scale, you're trying to hit a target about that big. So, do you think it's going to be safe to just say, well, Google will figure it out? It doesn't matter. Google will figure it out. Maybe not. And that is just the World Wide Web. So we also have these stats from Internet Live Stats. If you ever go on this website, you can see it actually just changes by the millisecond while you're watching it. And this was what I pulled from yesterday, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This was how much traffic the internet had. And you could see 990 million, almost 1 billion websites. Lots and lots to look at there. There's roughly 86.75% of people in the U.S. who have internet. That's most of us. I'm not sure what that other, 14% are doing, but they must be living out in the middle of nowhere somewhere with a bunch of chickens and goats. How many of you think that pie chart there is probably pretty accurate? Everybody think that, yeah, pretty accurate? No, you'd be wrong. Google's been losing market share. In the United States, Google only has a little over 65% of the market. And that's just in the United States. Let's add China to that. In China, the internet penetration is less than half. The most populous country in the world, less than half of them actually have internet. So you can see where the growth is going to be coming from. It ain't going to be the United States. In addition, in China, Google's actually blocked. And Baidu accounts for the majority of the market share. This is where the future is, folks. If you're thinking about Google and being really Google-centric, you're going to miss out on huge opportunities. In addition, Baidu, although it's primarily for the Chinese market, has been working on an English website and an English search engine. And I believe that they will be the first major competitor to Google that they've seen in quite a while. Worldwide, Google only owns about 70% of the market. Still a lot, definitely, but you've got another 30% and almost 8 of it that's held by Baidu. Another 30% held by other search engines, and then almost 8 by Baidu. So can we just take a spoonful of sugar and hope that everything will work out for the best? Do you think we can trust Google to just figure things out on their own? Sometimes Google gets it right. There are times like this one where, okay, they discovered that this site was Champion Freight and it had some information about it. They modified the title and the description a little bit. You can see that the title doesn't have New Zealand in it. Now Google is doing this every day to every search result. You will see the title's modified, the description's modified. In this case, they wrote a meta description that included that they specialize in customs. But where did they get that meta description that they actually used in the result from? Well, they actually got it from the page. So if the SEO was on the ball, they would realize that if they wanted to get customs into the meta description, all they need to do is add it to this sentence. Pretty simple, right? When Google gets it wrong, they get it really wrong. They do things like make it look horrible with all lowercase. Or this second one here, review of 8-ball pool rules, chose it especially for Sharkies. It's not a review. It's actually a listing of what the rules are for 8-ball. So it's not even the right content that Google is putting in the title tag. It's coming from just their random understanding of the page. And then that bottom one, that's really problematic because these guys actually don't do Google AdWords management. They only outsource it. And they're very clear about that on their page. But hey, Google felt like they should rewrite their title, and they said they're a Google AdWords management company. So you can see when Google gets it wrong, they really get it wrong. I would say they get it right about 80% of the time. If you're in the 20%, heaven help you. But what about, you say, Jenny, but Google's getting so much better, they're getting so much smarter. They have all these exciting things. They're improving their semantic search, and they're doing the knowledge graph, and they're getting all this great information. And we won't talk about the fact that they're stealing it all and posting it without any attribution, but they're doing all these great things. And I say, well, let's just take one example. Let's take RankBrain. So if you do a search in Google today, now that RankBrain is active, I did it with images for purposes of illustration, but it does the same thing with search results. And I do want to plug my friend Christine Schackinger there. Her article on understanding RankBrain is one of the best that I've read. And she goes into this a little bit in that article as well. But for illustrative purposes to show you, let's say I do a search for iced tea, and I get that. Okay, that's pretty good. That's probably what I was looking for. But just in case that wasn't what I was looking for, Google also gives me him. I knew I had some 80s people in here. So I think, okay, well, let me refine that search. What I'm really looking for is the recipe for iced tea. So let's think about I was going to put iced tea in a glass, I don't know, iced tea glass. Well, now I've got the glass, but I don't have the tea in it. And then I go, well, I really like goji flavors, so let me do that. And now we're way off the rails, and Google says, well, hey, let's go get drunk. We don't understand what it is you want. Then we go into, okay, well, how about if I dissolve the sugar in the glass? This is getting closer to the recipe, or so I think. What Google actually thinks I want is the chemical composition of hot water and sugar. It takes me actually using Google's drop-down recommendation for a glass of sugary iced tea to get back to what I actually wanted. Google only understands what's happened before. And most searches in a given day have never happened before. So if Google's basing everything on what's happened before, then how can I be sure that they're going to get what my customers are looking for, that they're going to be able to connect that intent with their search and with my content? And the answer is you can't be sure, and that's why you need SEO. Google says, we'll just figure it out. Don't worry, just put your pages up. We'll get it figured out. Gary Ish just said a few days ago, don't even worry about schema tagging. It'll just take care of itself. In reality, it ends up a little bit more like this. So you think, all right, SEO is just totally screwed. SEO is dead, right? So let's just think about content. And guys like this come in and tell you that all you have to do is think about content. I love Phil Buckley, by the way. He's a good friend of mine. I just had to make fun of him. He's right. Content is super, super important. But the problem with content is that if you build it and Google can't see it, then anybody who doesn't already know about your website isn't going to find out about your website. You're not creating any new customers that way. So we'll come back to that. There's this esoteric value of quality. How do we determine quality? And you hear this all the time, right? Create quality content. This is what you need to do. Your content isn't good enough quality. That's why you're not ranking. Well, we need some way to define and determine what that is, because we're marketers and we're looking at things more from the marketing side of things. What do our customers want? How do we deliver content that matches their intention? And Google has to look at things from a computer programming perspective. Google is a computer. It's a series of extremely sophisticated computers, but it's still just a computer, and it needs to have something that it can quantify. So we've been struggling with this forever. What is the quantification of quality content? Google came out recently with their search quality guidelines. It was originally leaked, and then they decided, well, hey, we'll just release them. What they do is they use these search quality raters guidelines to be, and there's an excellent article on the SEM Post, by the way, by Jennifer Slegg, that goes into great detail about this. Google says we create these quality raters guidelines as a feedback mechanism. It doesn't necessarily impact rank, but what we do is we use these search quality raters, which are people who essentially volunteer. They get paid, but it's not very much, to do searches and provide Google feedback on what searches come up in the top positions for that search. Google's had never quantified before what quality content was. And in this new version of the Search Quality Raters Guidelines, they said, well, here it is. This is what it is. It's EAT. Expertise, authority, and trust. EAT. This is what Google's using to determine whether your content is good quality or not. All fine and good. That's terrific. But if Google can't see it, they can't rate it. So I'm going to argue that as SEOs, what we need to be focused on is value instead. And value is the architectural elements of your site plus the quality elements of your content. Because if you make great content, but Google can't see it, it essentially doesn't exist. Now, every great content writer will argue with me on that. They'll say, oh, but Jenny, it absolutely exists because we have our customers sharing it and our clients reading it. And yeah, that's absolutely true. That's all well and good. But you're not going to generate any new business that way. You have to have the content visible to the search engines. Aristotle said, well begun is half done. What I believe that really means is we have to start out doing things the right way. If we start out doing things the right way, then we're halfway to the solution that we need to have. Google shared with us their pipeline. This is a few years old, but this is a simplified pipeline of how their search engine works and how the indexation process works. What they don't want you to focus on, and what I want you to focus on, is this beginning part right here. Do you see that you have to get through the crawler and the crawl scheduler before you have any chance of indexing and showing up in search results? You do. You have to be seen. Google has to be able to see you. And the only way that you get into the crawler and the scheduler is if your site measures up to some basic elements. Some things like the link value pointing to the page and the keywords being used on the page and all other kinds of metrics that, like it or not, are measured by a computer. It is no accident that this periodic table of ranking factors that's released every year, every 2 years, by Search Engine Land is still primarily technical. As a matter of fact, almost all of it is based in technical elements. And this is why the greatest content marketer in the world won't be able to do the things that the people in this room can do for a website. This is why technical SEO is so important. And if you don't believe me, just take some of these scenarios. Anybody know the answer to this one? You guys are a room full of really expert SEOs. Come on, somebody knows the answer to this one. If you don't know the answer, maybe you've been focusing a little bit too much on content and not quite enough on the mechanics and the architecture involved in SEO. You're absolutely right. Well, it's not never, but it's no. In this case, no, you shouldn't, because it should only be used when IP location is being used. It's a highly, highly technical question that could be the difference between pass or fail when it comes to being added to that crawl scheduler system. Here's another one. Anybody want to take a guess at this one? It's actually a trick question. None of these three will work. And one more, just for fun. No? Why not? experience.
Because low value content may get you the long tail keywords.
That's an interesting answer. He says because low value content may get you the long tail keywords. But what if it's so low value, like it's, just spun pages with just the same city name and no uniqueness to the content? All you're doing is changing out the city name. We're removing it. Google says you shouldn't remove it. What they really mean is that you just need to improve it. Google never wants you to remove content. They only want you to improve it. And I did an article on this, Decoding Google Speak, that I strongly recommend that any SEO read, because it talks about how you take what humans say and put it in context so that you understand whether they really said what they meant to say or if they were just being highly, highly literal and not accounting for all the questions that would come after it. In this case, Google said this, Gary Yesh from Google said this, that you don't want to remove low value content, and he got jumped all over by SEOs. And he eventually backpedaled and he said, well, no, you don't want to remove it, but that's not the only thing that you have to do. You also have to create great quality content to go along with it. So, this is my point, right? You have to be able to look at these things from an architectural standpoint and from an experience standpoint to be able to solve these problems. And the people in this room, you guys are able to do this. And SEOs in general are able to do this. And this is why SEO is such a critical part of what we do on websites. Even more than anything else, getting added to that crawl scheduling system is a bit like this. I have a 9-year-old boy. He can accomplish entire economies. He can build entire economies in 30 minutes on Minecraft, but he can't actually sweep the kitchen floor. Honestly, half-heartedly sweep part of the kitchen floor. Mike's not even done arguing with me about why he shouldn't have to sweep the kitchen floor or how he's too short to sweep the kitchen floor. There's all kinds of excuses that people will give you, that children will give you. And Google is the same way. They have 47 billion pages to index. They do not have time to deal with your crap. If you have a lot of stuff coming at them, they need to get back to their Minecraft world and figure out that. Because all things being equal, if your site is architected more poorly than your competitor, guess who's getting the crawl? It's going to be your competitor. Google has problems to solve. And your site is the very tip. They do not care about your site. They do not care if you think that you provide the best service, if you think that you have the best website on whatever topic. What they care about is making money and making their stockholders happy and ruling the world. Your site does not matter to them. So if you take only 3 things away from this talk, then remember that Google is your boss. You need to get your you-know-what together. Be ready. Have an agenda in the form of an XML sitemap. And get them focused on what they need to do. Do not waste time or your crawl budget. Content is not everything, Phil Buckley. It's great, but you have to have people be able to see it. And Google is not king. Google is facing major competitors. Facebook, Baidu, others that we haven't even talked about yet. Google's losing market share, and having a Google-centric policy is really dangerous. So, thank you for your time, and long live SEO.